Hi, Tim.
Hey Valerie, how you doing?
Good.
Oops, there we go.
We just got two more panel, two people you are also. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I saw that DQ and Titus are joining.
Okay, good.
How have you been?
Good. I'm actually on a beach right now in
Sorry.
Oxnard, California. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, we were able to get down to Florida last week.
Oh, good.
Or 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So are they starting to mask up again out there?
Ventura County. So I'm in Oxnard. So Ventura County, I think not as much as LA County, but we have.
Yeah.
I'm not really going out anywhere because I have a someone under 12. So, but otherwise, most of us are vaccinated. Just my 10-year-old isn't.
Yeah.
No one's masking on the beach.
Right.
It's actually, there are hardly any people on the beach. It's actually really nice.
Yeah, we just got word today the university's going full mask again. So on campus.
Not us.
No.
Not us. Nope.
Yeah, I'm surprised they did because Ohio legislature is trying to pass a law against mask mandates. So
yeah, exactly. They just sent an email saying they're encouraging masks, but I think that's all they can do.
That's what they did last week, and then today they came out and said everybody on campus, anybody inside on campus, has to be masked. So.
There's hope.
We'll see. I'm not sure there is hope in states like ours.
Yeah. It's so political.
Yeah. Which is just goofy, but.
Dun, dun, dun. Are you in Austin?
No. No,
I
decided.
you were gonna go.
Yeah, I was going to, and then last minute decided not to. So.
Yeah, we had a lot. We had a few people like that too in some of our sessions. Deciding they didn't want to go.
Yeah, I was going to, and then I saw some people starting to back out, and I thought, I don't want to travel all the way down there just for to sit in my hotel room and
exactly
not really do a whole lot. So, and I've got to travel again next weekend, so I figured I'll do this from here. So, yeah. So have you been going on to campus or most stuff from home?
A little bit, just because to meet with grad students, I feel bad for them. So also it was good to get out of my house, frankly. But no, I mean, we start August, I don't know, 18th or something, and I'll be going back.
Yeah, that's how we are. 16th, I think we start. So
yeah, that's probably the same.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I just know my first day of teaching is the 23rd. So
right.
I don't know when it actually starts, but
yeah, that's I've been fortunate. My kids are all adults at this point, so it's made it easier to work from home. I can't imagine what people are dealing with trying to work from home while having school age kids that are.
Yeah, it was really tough. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And I also, on top of that, there's all this COVID research too. So you get dragged into like research where you're on the phone in morning and night. And so it was like double whammy. But
it's been, I've been serving on our local schools COVID committee, and it was I thought I was doing the right thing just to bring up a data perspective to things, but it was me, and then everybody else on the committee they were all medical doctors, and they all had kids in the school district, and so everybody came in with an agenda, and my kids are all out of school, so I didn't have anything at stake. So
yeah, I mean, I actually put my younger kid in private school this year just to avoid the mess, because he was in public school last year, and I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So they'll both be in private school, but they're still not going to be wearing masks. Masks are optional starting this fall. So.
Yep.
Hi there.
Hey. Jennifer, where are you from? I know you're from LA, right? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Michigan. I'm from the Midwest.
Why did someone tell me that you went to the same school that I did then as Laura Schechter? Okay, I totally have it wrong.
Yeah, maybe Laura. I mean, Laura's from LA.
No, we went to the same school.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Wow, that's crazy.
For some reason, I thought you said you went to the same school too. And I'm like, oh, okay, where are you from?
No, I'm a product of the Michigan public school system. all the way through. But did you know that you're already recording the meeting? Did you want to be recording? Oh, okay.
I just set it up that way. I don't know how to set it up differently.
That's all right. I won't say anything really compromising right now.
Yeah, exactly. Just be careful. Hi, Jane.
Hi. Sorry, my other session just ended.
You're early, and Titus is joining us, and DQ is all. Actually, how do you want to do this? Do any of you, did you sort of prepare something to say, or do you just want to sort of chime in informally? How does everyone want to do this?
I have some notes, but I'm happy to just use them as we go along. I mean, I don't need to speak.
Anyone else?
I'm game to go informally, or to just, give my top 10.
I can give you each a few minutes to say a few words. Do you mind do you need an order, or can I just call on you? I mean, do we want to set an order? I don't even know how it appears on the program, to be honest. Rachel, since do you want to go first?
I can go first. Yeah, that's no problem. I might not have anything to say in the discussion then, Valerie, but that's all right.
And then Tim, do you want to go second?
I can. I don't have anything formal prepared
to say. Okay,
yeah,
so why don't we just leave it very informal then? We won't go. We'll just, and you can go from your notes, and that way no one feels they're put on the spot.
So I was looking for the room. Here I am. I'm at the meetings. I'm live. And I clicked on my little agenda and I said, oh my God, what room do I have to go to next? And then it said virtual.
No, I'm sorry. We would have put it on Twitter too, but on what is today? Monday. Yesterday, someone was sent some graphic. I wasn't on there, so I don't know if it was a video or in person.
I wasn't there either. Joyce knows.
So I don't know. Joyce, did we see a video or someone sort of in real time?
The awards?
Yeah. Was it during the awards where someone was exposing himself? During
our business
meeting? Was it a video or real time?
It was hard to say because they couldn't share screen. So they're just it was just their profile video background or something.
Oh my gosh, so weird.
So I won't speculate, but it was.
Are there a lot of people there live?
Are there? Yeah, there are. Well, Tice knows he's here live, but yeah, there's quite a few people here.
Yeah, I watched the keynote thing yesterday, and it was great, but I couldn't tell. I heard the cheering, and I was like trying to judge how many people were there, but I couldn't get an image.
There are some, but the chairs are all spread out, so it's hard to judge.
But the attendance is surprisingly larger than I expected. So it has been really nice to see in-person participation and a very strong remote online presence too.
That's good.
Let's wait a few minutes because I know some of our CWE members are going to be joining. They might just trickle in.
Hi, team.
Hey, Titus. How you doing?
Doing good. And Jane, I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time, right? Yeah.
Oh, wasn't the Cosbay Seaway speaker fabulous at lunch? Oh,
Yes.
she's going to run for office. She was fabulous. What was she? The Assistant Deputy Secretary of Civil Rights for USDA.
This is Karina.
Hey.
Hi, Karina.
I'm trying to see some light here. Is it better or worse?
I've seen a good number of you virtually or read stuff that you posted so many times that I feel like I know you so much. So hopefully we get a chance to see a lot of people in person as time goes on.
I have the same. I have a lot of people I forget that I've never actually met yet.
Joyce, did you see the announcement?
About masks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm relieved.
Yeah.
But also.
Ohio State just went full masks.
Michigan State did 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, since we can't require vaccines.
We're probably going to get masks like in September or something when everyone's already getting Delta. I'm just maybe.
You can't get vaccine mandate at OSU, the other OSU?
Nope.
Oh, that's Ohio law?
Yep.
We already have one.
Actually,
Yeah, we have one too.
Short term.
We have a vaccine mandate.
Yeah.
You guys, come on. Don't even start. Don't even go.
Don't laugh at us out here in the
Yeah, come on. I
purple
mean, it's
states.
not,
Hey, I'm now in Texas. Like, whoa.
I don't know.
I'm not, Joyce, I'm not convinced we're purple.
Yeah. I have to move back into the red. So.
There's a blue stripe.
Yeah, I mean, same in Arizona. It's like Tucson and Phoenix are maybe purple, and then everywhere else is pretty red. All right. I expect more people. I mean, I know some more people that will be joining. Hopefully it's not an issue with the Zoom link. Do we just want to start? And then we can, go from there.
Just a quick clarifying question.
Sure.
What is everybody getting the same view, or is the view that I'm seeing in front of me the comprehensive? So everybody that is joining will be on this screen?
Yeah. Is that bad? I guess that is bad.
I hope they can
I should have set it up like a panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, are we all presenters? So there's 10
No.
people in this session? Okay, so we don't have 10 people presenting.
Sorry, I just set it up, very informally, like we're all in the meeting. I didn't do anything special so that only the panel speakers are speaking or whatever. But I think the rest of us can turn off our videos.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm just trying to get a sense for the size of the people who are viewing.
Yeah.
I can't find it offhand, but there is an option that you can choose not to show some of the participants. I just can't remember if it's only show people with a live camera or only hide people who are called in on the phone. Does anybody remember?
I can probably designate you as a parent.
You were cutting out a little bit there. Was that just me?
No, I couldn't hear anything, and I can see Tim and Jennifer moving, so I know it's not my connection.
My internet is not so great, so Joyce, chime in whenever you can, because I don't have great Wi-Fi.
Did you make me a co-host?
I'm going to do that right now.
Okay.
Is this a trend? Are we supposed to be turning off our cameras? I feel confused.
No, I'm just an observer, not a panelist. So I thought I would turn my.
Okay, I got it.
Joyce, do you just want to lead the discussion?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to try to figure out how to make them panel.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us for the session on COVID-19 and promotion and tenure. We wanted to talk with some department chairs here and think about, how we might evaluate promotion and tenure packets differently in light of COVID. What are ways that we can adjust performance expectations or need to adjust performance expectations, and how we can make sure that things, that we maintain equitable and inclusive practices as we move forward through this seemingly everlasting pandemic. So I don't know if anybody wants to start, or I can call on. Jen, do you want to lead us off?
Oh,
or Rachel?
okay. Well, I think Rachel was ready, but Val made her ready. I have a similar list probably of things that she does. We'll let Rachel start and then we'll go.
Okay, we can work on this collaboratively because I broke it out as what system-wide did for University of California and what campus did, and then what other chairs and I did related to that, and then what we're doing at the department level. So if people want to pick a category, and then stuff on diversity we've been doing this past year. So if somebody else wants to pick a category, then we can just start with that, or I can choose a category randomly.
Maybe let's start big and then go small.
Yeah, I think I like that.
All right, go for it.
I mean, we can start by talking about how the pandemic has really affected us in different ways. And then we can talk about what kind of mitigation strategies or remedy our institutions are using, and then maybe some personal ideas too as to what individuals could do as a means of coping. But I think a good place to start could be, how has it affected different people? And I can begin by just sharing about how the feedback that I've gotten as a department chair from meeting with individual faculty. So I will start out by saying that this is a really difficult time, especially for young faculty in our department at Michigan State University. One of the things that I do on a regular basis is checking in with individuals, even though it was virtual, but we'll have like an hour Zoom call and say, how are you doing? I mean, no reporting back, just how are you doing? And the responses vary. Some people say, oh, I'm doing fine. Some people say, I am having the most horrible time. And when I think about the things that I hear, just like a catalog, I think I can think of it in two categories. One is the personal health impact of COVID on our faculty. I'm sure that you all have had the same experiences, but people had major anxieties and mental health issues that came from COVID. As I thought about it, from the things that I heard, a lot of it was really emanating from a sense of isolation and lack of support system that they usually get from their colleagues when we could all meet in person. And then we also had people that had separation anxieties. But in addition to that, the one that is the most common that I've seen is that there was, it became more difficult to separate the kind of balance that each person has worked out between family and work, or home life and work life. Many with young children became the primary teachers for their children when the schools closed and things were being done remotely. Some that had more elderly parents became the primary caregiver and provider. I mean, on multiple levels. So we're juggling a lot more things. And I think that created a lot of challenges. And some of the people on our faculty also experienced real losses. I'll give you an example. We had a graduate student that went back home to Southern Africa and to do data collection right before COVID hit. And in the last 2 months, he lost his wife, he lost his father-in-law, and he lost his brother, and he has a 1.5-year-old son. So just use him as an example and think about how that affects him mentally, physically, psychologically, and the expectations that we have placed on our graduate students. And then you think about the faculty members too. So the impact of COVID on individuals, I would say, is overwhelming. And we really need to think more carefully about the ramifications and the scope of impact so that we can better come up with remedies and solutions to help our people. I'll stop there.
So Titus, I can piggyback on that just a little bit and say that in general, our universities also expected almost miraculous and instantaneous adaptation, right? So maybe the research expectations maybe get put to the side, because at our institution, it was everybody automatically gets another year for promotion and tenure. Yet that put extra anxiety on some faculty members who said, but I was ready, I was on a trajectory, or what does that mean for the rest of my life that now I have to wait yet another year? But I think that instantaneous expectation that you will now teach remotely, whether your class is 20 or 300, it put extra on top of everything else, that there still was an expectation, even though our upper administrations tried to take the heat off by saying, I don't know if other institutions did that, but everybody has an extra year, is one of the things that our upper administration did.
We gave people options so they can opt in or opt out for the 1 extra year.
We did that as well with the statement, but what was interesting is about half of our junior faculty, I had to reassure them repeatedly that it wasn't a requirement that it be extended a year, that it was an option. You know, finally, I'm like, it's a free option, really and truly. And, you know, there aren't many of those in life. So.
And Rachel, that's what I advised the faculty, but it still is unclear from our up administration whether it's everybody, somebody. You can still go up, you can choose it if you can't. So I think that the suggestion is that clarity of policy is as important as policy itself.
You're exactly right, Jane. And this was something that our administration actually got right. And this was University of California as a whole, because there's 2 years of stop the clock for new parenting events, you know, adoption or childbearing. They just said everybody gets another year of stop the clock. And that's always been an option and not a requirement. So it was just added to an existing program so that there was clarity for those of us who've been around.
I see Jen has her hand up, but I also want to ask you folks too, or throw out the question about whether any institutions have actually adjusted expectations, because I've had similar, right? My entire trajectory has fallen off, right? 1 year isn't going to be the thing to fix it at this point.
Yeah, one of the things we did at Michigan State was to ask each faculty member to include a COVID statement in their annual review, during the annual review process. And also, if there are special mitigating circumstances that require something outside of the university-wide accommodation, that they should communicate that back to us. And I would be curious to hear what other department heads and chairs from other institutions think about this. But one of the things that we did as chairs and department heads in my college was to really have a conversation about how the pandemic affect people in different ways. So some people actually benefited from the pandemic in terms of research productivity, and some didn't. So some people were able to finish their research because of where they were at the point of writing, and they didn't have young kids at home, and they were able to just hunker down and write. So in the next year, it may be that they produce a lot more papers. But one of the points that I really stress to our group and to people in our college who are making decisions is that this is not a 1 year thing. It's more than 1 year, and we need to find a way to accommodate our faculty and to have policies and accommodations in place that extend beyond just 1 year because of the lag effect in the way that we do our research, our scholarship, and the fact that there are a huge range and variation across individuals and across disciplines in terms of how this might affect people who are going up for promotion.
I think, Titus, that is an excellent point. Like, I think that a lot of us, I don't know, just as like on the receiving end of like journal articles, it became absolutely insane. I felt like I was getting so many review requests, and many of the, there was clearly a disparity in the, when the manuscript is not blind, let's say, you could see a disparity of, there was clearly one demographic group that was being a lot more productive than the other. And, and there was sort of a lot of pressure from editors. And I mean, everyone was trying to be understanding, but also, editors were like, we need to accommodate that there's a massive number of submissions of articles and we need reviewers. And so I think that also sort of people felt that they needed to sort of, some were doing more service in order to make sure that, people were getting research out and it wasn't going to affect others' promotion. But at the same time, like the trade-off was that your own research productivity was being affected by that. So I don't know how, I mean, I think, when we talk about promotion, there's, associate level, but there's also full. And I don't really know if there are any mechanisms that are in place to sort of recognize the amount of service responsibilities that some people were taking, knowing that they had to step up because the demand for that kind of those type of activities was there.
I want to say a few things about like what we did at an institutional level and what we did at a departmental level. And I do think that with all those things, the challenge that Titus emphasized, which is that people were affected really differentially. And I would divide them into like the faculty, on the faculty side, not grad students, that's a very complicated thing, but faculty with kids, faculty without kids, and international faculty who had huge COVID surges in their home countries and their families were threatened. And all of these people had really differential effects, but for all of them, we offered the same thing. We have a automatic tenure clock extension, which is not mandatory, like Rachel. Like people know it's not mandatory because you get the same extension when you have kids and you can take it and then not use it. We also for both annual reviews and for P&T packages, we asked faculty to write an impact statement, how COVID had impacted their productivity, their mental health, you know, it's kind of a wide range of things that might affect their progress. And then as supervisors, we weren't even given access to student evaluations for the past year. Faculty could give those to us if they wanted to or not. And my own personal approach in the teaching evaluation was that I talked to people about teaching, and I basically said, like, if you made it and you you finished the class, and either with or without extra help that some people asked for and some people didn't, then that was success. You know, like showing up and getting it done. You know, we had to do that, and there were a lot of student disasters that made teaching particularly stressful and also made it hard for people like me who had to find the students when they disappeared. And at a departmental level, we so that our international graduate students didn't have to go home last summer, I just employed all of them to some of them helping faculty get their remote teaching ready, because some people at our university, a lot of people do online teaching in general, and so they know what they're doing, but some of them don't. And so those people in particular needed help. And so we had these extra graduate students who didn't have funding in other ways, so we paid them to help with that. And but all of these things at the end of the day feel kind of unfair because of this thing where actually some people's productivity was really high. But if you were the kind of faculty member who collects data internationally or face-to-face in any way, like in an experimental lab, then this imploded your research trajectory completely. So I don't know if anybody has things to say about how to deal with this sort of variable effects part.
Well, I'll just kind of piggyback a little bit, because I think the theme has been that there's absolutely no one size fits all for how we adjust to impacts of COVID. And, you know, as a result, you know, I think we're all specialists at interpreting data. And so we have to really think about doing that in this process. How do we interpret behind the scenes and see this as an outlier of a year, and understand that it'll take a different level of time, or different amount of time, or a different level of activity for a different person's program to get back up to full speed. And so I think we have to just be wise as administrators and as faculty to determine, you know, what were the circumstances that each faculty experienced. And that's the importance of those COVID impact statements. It gives an opportunity. First, it also gives you institutional memory. So it's not something that's forgotten, you know, if it's going up for the first promotion, by the time you go for the next, you don't forget that COVID actually happened and the impacts that it had. So, you know, I think, you know, from an administrative perspective, we know that promotion and tenure is considered a long-term investment. So we look at it as something that we're investing in trajectory over the long term. And in most cases, when faculty had an active program that was thriving pre-COVID, more than likely there's a level of communication that can be done, or a level of support that we have to give, or flexibility that will help them get back to that same level of productivity. I think it's important for us to see where they were before and figure out how to get them back there. It's more of a challenge when you have a new faculty who started in the middle of COVID, because you don't know, you don't have, it's 1 point. You know, it's hard to draw a line with 1 point. And so it's difficult to evaluate there. But, you know, we evaluate stocks and things like that. In a bad year, if it's a blue chip, you know, you have a bad year with the blue chip stock, but you assume that it's going to come back and you'll still invest in it. And I think that's how we have to look at productive faculty, understanding that, you know, if we provide the right resources and level of support and compassion in this case, I think that they actually, you know, and we can see through the data to understand that there was a challenge that individuals had that we can help adjust to. So, and I think everybody, the anxiety effect of, you know, we are saying that, you know, that we know that it's unique, but I think that probationary faculty have a huge level of anxiety as a result of assuming that everybody's thinking their situation was the same as everyone else's. And I think it's important that we communicate a lot to make sure that they're aware that we see them, that we hear them, that we understand that their situation may have been more challenging than someone else's, and that they won't be penalized as a result.
Tim?
So
I want to make sure I give Tim, sorry, let me give Tim a chance to.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm not sure I have a whole lot to add because I'm actually comforted by the fact that there's other chairs out there who are struggling with the same issues that we're struggling with, because I at times, just like faculty, I think at times chairs feel like they're in unique situations when in fact there's commonality to a lot of what we're dealing with. So at Ohio State, we did have the 1-year extension, and that was offered to everyone. Possibly unique situation we have at Ohio State is that in the past we've had sort of a tradition, especially for promotions from associate to full professor, of a 5-year rolling window. They went to a 5-year rolling window for productivity to try to encourage more associate professors to go up for full professor in a particular period of time, because if they went a long period of time without productivity, they felt like they couldn't ramp up their productivity and get over that hump. So they went to a 5-year rolling window. It creates a unique situation now, and we have some faculty that are going through that where, okay, I'm in the middle of that 5-year rolling window, I'm in the middle of a productive period, and then COVID hits. How do I make that decision? Do I go up now because I had a few good productive years? But if I wait, I may have to wait another 5 years because all of a sudden my productive years are behind me in a certain sense, because I've got to wait for that productivity to pick back up to get into that 5-year rolling window. So it creates another differential impact that we have to be paying attention to. Those differential impacts are absolutely critical. And we had an upper administration turnover in the middle of this. So we have a new president, we have a new provost, and the signals have gotten mixed at times. We were being told all along we have the COVID impact statements also from all of our faculty. We've been told that on an annual basis we should be taking into account the COVID impacts. And then this year the university came out with a raise pool that they said should not be across the board. It should be based on merit. And so all of a sudden, now we have to evaluate merit when we've been sending the message all along that we're going to be taking into account the differential impacts of COVID. So now how do we define merit in that circumstance? And, you have people who are successful despite being impacted by COVID. You had people who were definitely harmed by COVID and the impacts of those. You have people who weren't as impacted as others. I can probably speak for myself. My own kids are adults now, and so I have sympathy for those who and empathy for those who have school-age children and have watched the impacts that it has on them. And so it creates a lot of different circumstances. And DQ, I couldn't agree more. Communication is key. I'm not sure. I have a number of my faculty here on on this call. They can probably speak to whether or not our communication has been good or hasn't been good, but communication from the top all the way down. The college has been sending different signals than the university. The university, I'm sure the department's sending different signals than what the college and university are sending. This is it's a absolutely difficult time to try to evaluate differences in productivity. And then one thing that I think has been a real positive in our department is we're having some really interesting discussions now about what it means to be excellent, what productivity really means. I'm not saying we're going to make huge differences in a short period of time, but those discussions are ongoing, and the fact that we're hearing diverse voices and we're hearing very different voices is something that's really encouraging to me. But there's a lot of structural inertia to get over in order to have those discussions. So I'm both optimistic and frustrated at the length of time these discussions take.
I have a follow-up, but I know Jane had something that she wanted to say. Then I'll follow up.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, so this is a question for all of you guys. So we have COVID statements too, everyone does, but the other chairs in our College of Ag and Environmental Sciences, and I've we went to war over the contents of those for the following reason, because it started out, well, tell everyone about your problems. And some people, they want to keep their privacy and they don't want it going to the faculty personnel committee. We all vote on each other's cases. They don't want all their colleagues knowing it, you know? And so I started telling people, just don't put it in. And if you don't get your raise, I'll take the flak. And so eventually we've got it. So you just talk about the impacts on your research and your teaching and your service, and you don't need to say what it is or why. Because again, people's lives are private. One of my fellow chairs, he said, look, this isn't necessarily your own medical information. This could be medical information about your spouse, your kids, your parents. That is not anyone's business. And so the university backed off on that. But we were kind of appalled.
I'm glad you did that.
I just want to mention too, so that, you know, we've titled this session or focused on COVID-19, but of course, simultaneous with COVID-19 was a lot of this reckoning around racial justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion that I think has also really changed service requests and service burdens, again, for a lot of our junior and underrepresented faculty as well. So if folks could speak to that too, I'd appreciate it.
So I'm going to try and move this conversation from crisis to opportunity. And there were a few conversations here at the meetings that I absolutely welcomed. And it was Madhu's that comment or evidence-based new president's discussion this morning that our field is the most, I'm going to say we have the most hubris and feel like we're this exclusive club. Sorry, and I've always felt like an outsider in this organization because I'm an applied economist, not necessarily an ag-focused economist. So the opportunity here is for the chairs who put these RPT packages through and these reappointment packages through is for us to widen our horizons and to say, I couldn't believe it when Madhu said, well, you know, the average number of authors on an ag econ paper is 1, and it increased to 2 over the last 20 years. Whereas my medical school paper colleagues, they have 25 authors, and you know, it's all good. So if we can encourage and recognize a team approach and say that that's good, you don't have to, you know, everybody doesn't have to write their own paper because we're stronger when we're in these interdisciplinary, they could be even disciplinary teams. I think that that's going to help us go farther because this supporting each other and this team approach, and that's something we can do at the department level because we know our fields. But that means we have to open up our own idea of what is quality and what is success in our field. And Valerie, when you said that you were being asked to, and you felt guilty about saying no, I will be honestly and say that I review for 30 journals and I said no. I just said no, I can't do it. And so that opens up another opportunity to say that, well, you know, everyone, the backlog in the journal that only accepts 20 papers a year is 5 years long. So we have to be a little bit more inclusive of what we will accept as adequate publication. And so I'm just throwing these ideas out there. I want to say that I really liked what Madhu said because transdisciplinary is the wave of the future and we're kind of behind the times in our field. But there are ways to put together teams to help the whole be successful. And not every individual has to be that service, research, teaching, and even extension bundle, but we can highlight what they do best and you know, maybe let the service go. So those are my 2 cents. And that's what I do in my department. And I've done for a long time because we're a very cross-disciplinary department. But I think we have to be willing to broaden our horizons of what it means to be successful.
Thanks, Jane. And I think that touched on a question in the chat too that Valerie had about ways that we might actually help, particularly our junior faculty network, given the losses, you know, the loss of that interaction during COVID. How did they build these interdisciplinary teams or get involved when they haven't been able to, you know, set foot on campus yet?
That's good.
And
So,
Jen, I don't know if you were addressing.
Oh yeah, I'm now thinking, I don't know if this was like, if I'm on track here, but I had 2 separate things to say. The first is that I think the problem with this nonsense single author versus multiple author discussion is that it's actually the letter writers that create problems in this way, because our colleges, if you're in a college of ag, what the P&T committee at the college level sees all the time is they see soil science, horticulture, they see like zillion author papers all the time. So it's not like the P&T process, it's the economists who write the letters of evaluation that, because then the P&T committee sees those and they're like, oh, the economists are criticizing this particular thing. So that I feel like is actually the big challenge, is a kind of slow movement, which I think is happening, but not quickly enough, towards accepting team-based science. On Joyce's question about the Black Lives Matter events and current discussions around diversity, for me, that's been super helpful this year. It allowed me to put in place more initiative, to change our grad admissions process, to do some training with faculty on inclusive pedagogy. And I think, it was terrible. It was a terrible year in so many ways, but that did open up some of these opportunities for discussion that people couldn't ignore any longer. They couldn't go say, well, that's not, my students are happy, so everybody must be happy. And it's been good, I think, in that way for us.
It is.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on the whole process of evaluation that we go through, and then emphasize or make some comments about what we do when it comes to service. So when we evaluate ourselves, we usually look at 4 buckets: research, teaching, extension, and service. Depending on the individual and the appointment, the ratios may vary. However, one of the most problematic one from my perspective that is hard to measure and can create a lot of challenges is service, because it's harder to define service, and because the department chair or head have a lot of discretion and influence, implicit and explicit, in evaluating service. It's one of those areas that we as leaders in the profession really need to pay more attention to, because each of those 4 categories, for those that have their appointments in 2 or 3 or all 4 of them, they are not really separate. I mean, yes, they are separate, but it's like a Venn diagram. They do overlap and they bleed into each other. If you spend a lot of time on service, you won't have as much time for research, and you will not be able to do as good a job as you want to on teaching or extension. So where is the balance, and how do you help junior faculty to find the right balance there? And I'll give you some examples here. So when I think about service, I think about service that is required. Even though you may be giving 0% or 5% on your appointment, depending on the department, they don't always fit into those neat boxes. There may be a semester when you actually spend like 15, 20% of your time on service, because you are a member of the underrepresented group, and you're always called upon to serve on committees. So you find yourself being mentally disjointed, because you are juggling so many balls, and at the same time you are up for promotion. So that creates a lot of challenges that I've seen in the past. Some of the ways that I've dealt with this in our department is to say to our junior faculty, you have the right to say no, but I know that there is a political pressure or implicit pressure because of the power dynamics, that you may not be able to say no sometimes. So can you please ensure that whenever you get external requests for service, not professionally, but in the university and the college, that you talk to me first, especially the ones you don't want to do. so that I can say no for you, or you can use me as your reason for saying no because I have told you. It's like a blank check. You could blame it on me that I told you that you're doing too much service. So say no, because your department chair will not allow you to. So they can then come to me and say, why are you saying no? But in most cases, they don't come back to me, they go to someone else. But that provides some covering for the junior faculty to be able to be more selective about the choices that they make. Then in terms of professional service, I've also pushed on that because each time I look at the portfolio or the annual review package of each junior faculty, I can see where they are serving. I've actually said so a couple of our junior faculty that are really good and they don't know how to say no because they love to serve, which is a good thing, especially on the other side of tenure. I said, you got a request from the AEA to chair this section and that section, you already had one. I do not want you to do it. And I was very emphatic. On the other side of promotion, you can do that because you may think that you can do it and it's not going to take a lot of time. But from experience, I know it's going to take a lot of time. So I think that the point I'm trying to make is that as department chairs, we need to be more proactive and be more attentive to the distribution of work that our junior faculty are taking on. And in some cases, we have to, in their own interest, be their advocate and their protector.
I think that's a good point. I just wanted to chime in. I think the one reason why people can't say no is because they do feel like they'll get a bad reputation that they don't do anything. So it is like coming from my own experience, I feel guilty like saying no. And also I don't want to have the reputation that I'm not doing enough service. But then there's another thing that no one's really raised that I'm curious about. It's been really challenging not having the grad student RA support that you would normally expect. So I don't know how it was at your school or your university, but for example, I had, a number of students who were going through mental health issues. And so suddenly I lost my research support at a time when I probably needed more research support than ever. And so I personally, I don't know how you juggle those things, but I think the just not having the general support that you normally would have has also sort of dampened the productivity of early faculty.
Tim, you
Yeah, a couple of things there. On the graduate student support, we've been fortunate to have an absolutely outstanding grad program coordinator, staff member who is regularly checking on graduate students, but that doesn't mean that we don't have those issues. And we've had a number of graduate students, and the stress on graduate students has been immense. Entire classes of students who really haven't met each other because they've been remote the entire time. So it's so that's been immense. But checking on the graduate students has been absolutely critical, and then seeing to their needs as they are experiencing those events. On the issue of service, I was joking with Zoe in the chat there. There's a number of different types of people. There's people that feel obligated to do service. There's people that want to do service. There's people that want to volunteer for everything, and we got to pull the reins back on sometimes. But there's also the question at both the department, college, and university level as to how do you reward service, how do you reward leadership in service, and how does that go into a definition of excellence? And these have been some really robust conversations we've been having as a department as to really how do you define what excellence really means. And particularly when you're going from associate to full professor and you're taking leadership and service, it goes towards that national reputation. It goes towards your reputation. One of those criteria that we have for promotion to a full professor But what if that that service that you're taking on doesn't necessarily apply directly to your research portfolio or to your specific field? It's more for the profession more broadly. I know personally, I value that very highly, and I think it does speak to your reputation as you do that. But does that work for the university? We were successful this year with the university in our external letters in asking external reviewers to comment on leadership and service. And that's something that hasn't been done before at our university. And so it's something that that I think's valuable, and it can play into those discussions. How will different units, department, college, university evaluate that? That's another question. That's something that we're gonna have to be having conversations about as we push forward. But you know, if you're making the profession a better place, if you're being if you're doing more for the profession, you're doing more for the university, then you know, I don't see why we wouldn't reward that. But some of the pushback you get on that is you have at our university, we have administrators who are full-time administrators who are associate professors and can't get promoted in their home unit because they're full-time administrators. Well, that seems like some sort of a disconnect, because you're obviously pushing the university forward, and you're making the university a better place, or at least hopefully trying to make the university a better place for others. But your own home unit won't promote you because you're not doing things that are directly related to the home unit. And so those kind of discussions, we have to keep pushing those discussions forward.
Great. And Rachel?
So I just want to talk a little bit more about service, but Tim's covered most of what I was going to say. And I would say that the other challenge with people who want to do service is that in many ways they're interested in too many things. And so trying to get them to specialize, what are the one or two things, say in university service, that you really care about? Is it undergraduates? Is it grads? You know, is it faculty advancement? Is it faculty welfare? Are you interested in, say, how the campus puts a budget together and that? But to get people to target specific areas so they learn more and focus on those. And I also think of that as building our departmental leadership pool, because we have deep expertise everywhere we need it. But, you know, just encouraging people to focus what they're doing can sometimes help them say no, because it's just it's another interesting thing. But is it something you see yourself doing going forward? The other thing I'll say is the question Valerie had about GSR support, where we saw it really was teaching, in part because we have a lot of our first and second year students as TAs and readers. And so when the students were struggling, then that meant the faculty were struggling too. And, you know, we had one assistant professor who just basically had a TA shut down on them. And so we had to pull another student and just add an appointment for them so that the faculty member and the students and the TAs could get through the quarter. I don't know if other people have seen it on that side, but, you know, our grad students are teachers too. So that was another complex thing. And then if the faculty member tries to pick it up, then that impacts promotion and tenure.
I was just going to say that I had a student that just was diagnosed with anxiety in the middle of an appointment. I had a very similar experience. And then it's like, okay, now I have to go reteach a new student, like the data set and everything, the concepts. It's really disruptive, but it's good that, you know, there are some other options out there for when that happens.
So I really appreciate Tim's comments about service. And I don't want to belabor this whole talk about service. And this is something that I share with our faculty. And I don't know if it's the same thing at other institutions, but if you're a fabulous researcher, a lousy teacher, and you don't do any service, you'll probably get tenure. If you're a good researcher and a good teacher and you have lousy service, you're probably going to get tenure. If you're a great service provider and you don't have those other two things, you're not getting tenure. So I kind of look at it as a ladder. I always suggest that the most junior faculty members be our faculty senate rep. All they have to do is to go to one meeting a month and they get the university. They hear everybody's politics. They get, they get the fire hose to it, but it's not a big commitment. And then they can start to think about, as you said, Rachel, where they'd like to focus, because I almost look at new faculty members as new undergraduates. They don't know where they want to focus their service yet. So how can they focus if they haven't had the opportunity? So it's, I try to have them do a step, like be a reviewer for your professional organization, get your foot in the door, even be a moderator of a panel, get on a journal review, get asked to do a couple of reviews, but that's enough for your first few years. And then as you grow, you can, that's enough for tenure, at least at my institution. Get on a department committee, then get on a college committee. And if you're lucky, there's so few university assignments. Maybe you'll have a university assignment by your 5th year when you're going up for tenure. But it's service isn't going to get you tenure. It's important, but I would say don't get bogged down in it. I think that it's being a good teacher, developing your teaching expertise, and developing that research program so that by that 3rd and 4th year, you've got enough papers in the pipeline, at least to say I've got them in the pipeline. And I don't know about other institutions, but our rubric is that if you have 2 publications a year, not proceedings, but 2 publications a year, and you have 12 to 15 by tenure, you're probably pretty good. So that's the roadmap that I give our junior faculty, and I tell them, don't get lost in somebody's pulling you into, as somebody said, to chair a section of AAEA. Just that can wait. Like, give your service, do your service, but that can wait, and don't be guilted into anything. And I hate to make this gender, but Valerie, don't be guilted.
No, actually, I'm going to push back. Jane, I'm going to push back on you a little bit, because here's sort of my devil's advocate. I think, and I'm by no means, I graduated in 2005. So I'm sort of a weird candidate here because I went to a faculty job later in life. But I would say that I think a lot of people like Zoe and others feel sort of obligated to do some of the service because they sort of witness things firsthand, or sort of seeing things, happen to peers, and maybe the, other committees at the professional organization or higher level governance is not really addressing some key issues. So on the one hand, I agree with you that for tenure purposes that you're right, service is probably not going to be taken as seriously as some of the other things, but I do just want to put that perspective out there that there are a lot of younger faculty that want to be involved in some service because they feel passionate about something that's happening. So,
and I would
relate to that. I wanted to ask, sort of, since I never get to talk to this many department heads at once, is that what you see as continuing to be the future of the discipline? That will always be the metric that we use, that you cannot get tenure being an excellent service person? Is that how we should be advising folks to proceed?
Not only, I at least that's, but I'm, 10 years, I won't be around. If you only do service, at least in my world, you would not get tenure.
I'll follow up a little bit. So I think that, we talk about promotion and tenure. It's based upon scholarly output in some way, whether that's, from a applied perspective or not. And, it's difficult to say you would tie that strictly to an outstanding service commitment. I do think, and I think Titus, Jane, Tim, you all answered it, but it really goes back to the department head in terms of protecting junior faculty members' time and giving them the proper assignments for service. And you talked about it, but you all basically exhibited that's what you do. And I think that's the important thing, knowing how to direct someone to what's important service, like the faculty senate, things that are valuable to them, but not that don't require so much time. And also advising them that, there's a time to wait and actually address those things that you're passionate about more when you've made it through a certain level. Participating in it, but not kind of selling your career to it, I'll say, earlier on in the process.
I'm going to just add real quick that one of the issues here, and I'm going to apologize if this opens the can of worms that we don't want to go down, but one of the issues here is that some of the service that we're talking about is actually service to the profession in terms of trying to change the system. And that's and tenure is part of that system. And so everybody's trying to achieve tenure, but also trying to change the system that rewards tenure at the same time. And that creates some really difficult discussions because tenure itself creates a lot of inertia. It weeds out people that want to change the system, and it rewards people who want to stay in the system as it is. And so then we're sending the signal, if we're not rewarding those types of activities, we're sending the signal that we like the system the way it is. And so that creates a lot of tension. And I'm not just speaking as a department chair, but also as a faculty member, because you see a lot of senior faculty members who take the attitude, well, we went through the system, just survive it, get through the system, then you can make change. Then once you get through it, that change doesn't happen because you're part of the system that didn't create the change. And so it's a really difficult sort of, the system itself creates tension within the system.
So I will add to that. I will say that the two things that I'm thinking about based on the conversation we've been having about service is one, being strategic, and the other word is balance. In terms of research, expectations, teaching, and the other things like that, you got to have all of them. But it's a question of how much, what is the balance that is expected in each department and each university, and what weights are placed on each of those, and that should help inform and determine what is and what should be done. So I know that the status quo may not be fair or equitable, but in order to have enough clout to make the change that is needed to the status quo, we have to find a way to become part of the power structure. Because one of the challenges we're facing right now, going back to Tim's point, is that there are certain kinds of service that doesn't create any ripples or waves. And there are services that are very consequential that creates waves. And those are the kind of service that I think requires even more strategy. So making fundamental change can, I think our profession, AAEA has improved a lot in the last 10, 15 years because we have a diversity of voices in terms of rank and in the hierarchy of our profession that are engaged in the conversation and are really pushing the issue. Because as a full professor, the way that some of the things in our profession and our departments affects me or affects you, it's not the same way that they affect our junior faculty. And if they don't have a voice and they're not engaged in the kind of service that allows them to say that and to push some ideas forward, then nothing is going to change. However, it requires some strategy, given the point that Tim just made. Our system can be cannibalistic toward the things that actually needs to change, especially if the right people, quote unquote, are not the ones pushing forward. And in this case, I think that part of the strategy that I'm seeing that are successful is that we have our younger faculty banding together, so we don't have lone voices. We have a group of people working together, like what CWAE is doing, what COSBE is doing, and what some other groups are doing. So there is strength in numbers and in unity. And I will encourage that we continue to do that. The second point I want to make with regards to strategy is that, yes, there are some frictions, and we need to recognize and acknowledge those frictions and respond to those frictions in our profession. The hierarchies are still there, and it's very difficult to get rid of those. So I always try to help our assistant and junior faculty to see the reality of the environment that we work in and how we can change it, and how there is need for patience when I say patience, I'm not saying don't do anything, but I'm saying that you need to be strategic in planning out the first 10 to 12 years of your career so that you are not just something that appear for 5-6 years and you're gone, and then the system continues the way it is. We need more people at the higher echelon of our profession in terms of rank and power who can speak truth to power and really help to effect those changes. So the strategy is working together and also having some patience in what you push for, how much you push for, so that you can last in the profession to be able to see the work of change realized. I know I spoke too long on that, sorry.
Just I like that Satya, our in chair-elect for CWAE.
I thought Jen had her hand raised before me.
I know, but Titus said all the stuff that I wanted to say, probably even better. So you can go ahead.
I just wanted to raise a question to the chairs. We very easily say that you can get tenure if you're an excellent researcher and okay at other things, and don't do any service. Do you think that will change? I mean, of course, no one is really going to go to the model where, or even expecting, no junior faculty that I have ever interacted with would ever say they want to do only service. And that's not why anyone joins the profession. That's not why any of us become professors. But will it get to a point that's along this continuum where you can't just do research, you have to contribute to the profession and contribute to your department? Will that become a requirement, or will that become more meaningfully a criterion is in the next 5-10 years maybe?
Satya, I don't misunderstand. I didn't say no service, and I don't misunderstand me. It's adequate service and service in the right place. So it's an important part of what we do. We can't make change unless we serve. There's absolutely, but Titus said it actually the best. And I like to say there's the radicals that shake things up and they're not really respected, and they won't make change, but they open the door for others. And you have to decide, are you going to be the radical that's going to shake things up? And then there's people who understand the system and they are watching and they're learning the system and they have that strategy. And once that door is open, they can start changing the system. And I personally have grown from a radical into one of those people who, snuck in the door, and I understand the system and I'm trying to, change the system from the inside. So there is strategy involved, as Titus said, and you have to have strategy. But I think that if you're that radical right out the door, you'll make a lot of noise and you might open the door for others, but you're probably going to suffer the consequences. And I hate to say that, but so you've got to somehow gain that respect, but you've got to have that strategy that Titus said. And service is incredibly important, but don't let it overtake all those other components that unfortunately are still part of the world that we live in.
And Jane, I'll tell you what I think I'd like to see, and I don't know if we're there yet. But so in our department, we have an expectation that you meet expectations in all areas of appointment and excel in at least one. Is sort of the implied decision process that we've gone through in the past. But service has never been included in that. It's never been included. Service is just kind of an add-on. Okay, everybody's expected to do service, and it's never evaluated. It's just sort of service is there. But why wouldn't it be added to that list of things? And you could excel in service. So you're meeting expectations in all areas of appointment and excelling in service. That seems to be a reasonable step that we could take that would lead to some of these changes that we're talking about, and it would also lead to some of the junior faculty and the non-tenured faculty feeling as if they can do these things without being those martyrs, as you put it that way.
And Jen has her hand up too.
Yeah, I was just going to say one small thing, which is that what I see, I don't know. I mean, it would be nice if if service were more emphasized. We tend to take the approach that and I think this actually complements what Titus said. When we write our summary letters for promotion and tenure, we link them very tightly to the position description of the person. So the expectation, you have a percentage for service, a percent for each of your doodads, you have a percent, and service is usually the smallest amount. It could be bigger. I mean, that would be a change, but that's kind of the way that we evaluate it now. But one of the things that I find heartening is that, and also actually kind of difficult, is that there is more emphasis on actually doing tangible, measurable things that prove that you're advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in at least some of the areas in which you are working. And at Oregon State, it's become more, I mean, they'll actually, the college P&T committee will send back some dossiers if they don't see that this has been something that people are speaking to. And I think that's good. I also think it's complicated because there's actually not a percentage attached to that. It's sort of this idea that, well, this other thing, you need to now describe all your other stuff in the context of inclusivity. And that I think we need to sort of sort out. But I do think that's a positive trajectory for us. Maybe other people have other experiences with that.
I think
I just wanted to say one thing. Sorry. I just wanted to say that bringing it back to COVID, that I think that one of my points was that the pandemic sort of created more service in a sense, like even though it's sort of a new type of service that nobody anticipated, whether it be sort of now we need more to respond to more referee requests, or now we need to sort of be better mentors because there's a bigger need for grad students to have that emotional support system in addition to that, the traditional support system. All of these things were sort of created by the pandemic, none of which are being recognized right now, as I understand it, in current promotion and tenure packets, other than there's going to be a 1-year extension or something like that. Now, maybe in the impact statement, someone could say these things. I don't know if a letter writer or the university or the administrative people would sort of recognize that there are all these additional service things that aren't usually accounted for in a traditional when you judge someone, basically. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think we're talking about service, like service and how that works with promotion. But what I want to point out is that the pandemic created sort of more service than we would have had before.
Can I bring us back to, so what is the role of, why are we academics? To create new knowledge and to educate the society of tomorrow, right? And so most of our service here, the discussion has not been focused on COVID generated service, but just service to change our profession. I think that that's a different box than why we got into this. And we're in a quagmire because our profession isn't what we would want it to be. So I'll just throw that out there. But Valerie, I think there's a way to change the narrative and to do that storytelling, just like when you write a grant, is that mentorship that was maybe caused by COVID is fitting into that educating the workforce and the society of tomorrow. And we're in a different place, and COVID has put us into a different place. And we've recognized that that people cannot just be, our graduate student machines or whatever. But I think there's a way to switch that narrative, or to create or craft that narrative in an RPT package that relates directly to what we're doing. We're creating new knowledge and we're educating society for tomorrow with our extra service.
Titus, did you have a?
I just kind of put it in the chat real quickly. I think that when possible, one thing that we could do is to find a way, if you find an area of service that you're really passionate about and you believe is very consequential, to find ways to integrate that into the other areas that, for better or worse, are very highly valued in the department or in our profession. I'll give you a quick example of that. So some colleagues and I are working on trying to understand and write a review paper on how discrimination and DEI issues are actually embedded in the way we think and do research in the area of environmental economics. So when that paper comes out and people change behavior based on it, that will be a paper that people will see as part of scholarship, but it's emanating out of an area of passion that many will just classify as service. You know?
Zoe?
I appreciate what everyone has shared here, and it's been a fabulous session. I guess my question is, one of the things that I think I've heard in a variety, in the context of variety of the issues that we feel like are these challenging, intractable issues where inertia is a factor, is this question of, well, yes, we might acknowledge that this is an issue, but can we really change it? And should we just kind of take it as a given and work within it? What can we change? And I guess I'm wondering, I know that there's a lot of, there's diversity of viewpoints among faculty, and together they make up, a voting body, or there are university rules that impact the ability to do certain things. But I'm wondering, I would say this is a pretty powerful group of people that we have on here in a lot of ways within our profession. Maybe sometimes feeling like you're between a rock and a hard place during the pandemic. I think probably being a department chair during the pandemic has been one of the most thankless jobs. So I appreciate what everyone's done. But I'm wondering what is it that we do have the power to change? Like, can we be more like within this group, or within some of the, I don't know, Jane, if CWAE and COSBE are considering some of what we're trying to do right now radical or not within your formulation, but what do we have the power to change? And where's the lowest hanging fruit? I mean, maybe none of it's low. It's all needs a ladder, but like, where's the lowest hanging fruit? What do we have the power to change? How can we move the needle on certain things? Can we identify those and move on those? Like, I know there's lots of issues that we've raised here, but I feel like if everybody in this group like worked together on like one issue, we could do something about it, right? So what's that issue, and where do we start?
I'm not going to volunteer an issue, but one of the things I'll say, Zoe, is that one of the things that has changed is the conversation, and I think that's a tribute to the people here, but also all of your colleagues and everyone else, because the conversation has fundamentally changed, and it's going to take time. And I don't want to be the person saying, "Whoa, hold back" or anything like that. But I want to, the nature of the system means these are going to be long conversations. But that conversation has changed, and maybe it's just because 3 of my faculty are in this meeting right now, and I'm used to being hammered away at about these things. But the fact that these conversations are ongoing is just something that's really, really valuable.
I feel like one of the biggest insights I've had over the last couple of years is thinking about what that creation of new knowledge means. And I think for me, what's evolved is that I see that the creation of new knowledge means that we also need to hear a lot of voices that we have not been hearing. The people who we have been hearing do create immense amounts of knowledge, but that knowledge is incomplete. And so that's where I see this service work fitting in for me personally, is expanding the breadth of the knowledge that's being created.
So Zoe, as always, excellent questions. And Joyce, I very much like your response. And so at Davis, one way we're trying to actually implement that is we've just started with money from system-wide Hispanic Serving Institution Initiative to widen the pipeline to the professoriate, working with high schools, community colleges, and other universities. And so there's a tremendous number of the faculty that are very committed to that. And so that's what we looked around the state of California, and that's what we decided to do. So we'll see, but we're excited about it. And the grad students are deeply involved too, which is also exciting because, you know, in a few years, they'll be here with Zoe talking as department heads and chairs. So.
That's great. And again, you know, linking it back to COVID, I think it's also because COVID has helped us see how many ways people are easily pushed out or included, you know, that we hadn't been thinking about very clearly in the past.
So Joyce, yesterday, I have to say that I've been blown away by these meetings for two reasons. One was Madhu's talk this morning, and the other was that AA is actually talking about circular economies. What? Are you kidding me? Like this is mind blowing to me. And so once you start talking about planetary ceilings and social floors, right, that we have to not fall before the social down through the trap on the social floor, which they really didn't talk about. That's donut economics, and it's been around for a long time. But to start looking at, we can't have unlimited growth. Those things somehow open the door for equity discussions. They open the door for other conversations. And I think this is the opportunity and the time to, once the door is cracked, to like rush through it. So, you know, what is CWAE doing? What is COSBA doing? Keep doing it. But when I saw the Kelly's presentation last night, I was like, oh my God, we're still back in 1980 in some ways. And so, but I think that the door is opening. So like I said, just rush through it.
I mean, this may be not speaking directly to the question. I feel like there's been some good comments here. I just want to say that I've been quite impressed with the type of issues and topics that are now being discussed in our profession, and also the kind of people at various levels of our profession that are engaged in that conversation. I think it's very encouraging. I think as department chairs and leaders and more senior people in the profession, we need to create room and space for those kind of conversations within our own departments. And also we need to find ways to be encouraging of the individuals that are part of that, that are on the forefront of those conversations, because when you are on the forefront, you have a lot of bullets coming at you and and some of them hit, and people don't always tell you how those things affect them. But I think that people that we see, especially our assistants or associate professors who are actively engaging in our profession to make the kind of changes that we want and that we need, I think that the more senior people in the profession needs to be better allies, and we need to find creative and regular ways to encourage them and to support them in the ways that they articulate to us and in the ways that we know to do that.
Thank you. Other comments? If not, I'll use my chair privilege to circle back around to something Rachel had brought up, which is this issue of having to share sort of personal information to justify COVID impacts. And I was curious how you all as department chairs had dealt with that or just reflected on it, and what it means to say that, you know, somebody is justified in being impacted versus not justified, and what is the language we should use around that? How should we interpret it? And what do people really need to, what are we really asking people in terms of proof or something? Do we need to, I guess?
Well, we took a similar tactic to what Rachel was saying, that we asked people to state how their research and service and teaching was affected. We didn't we're not asking for doctor's notes here. We trust that people will tell us if they're affected. I guess, I don't know. I guess there are arguments against that, but.
I just mean, so do you ask them to say like, oh, I had 2 kids that I was homeschooling, or do they just say, I submitted 5 less papers for review this year?
Some people choose to reveal that stuff, but they don't have to, and they can simply say that the events of the pandemic made it that I could not finish papers that I had started, or I was not able to. For most of my faculty who were affected, whose research was affected, was because they could not collect the data they had planned to collect. So that's pretty easy to say, and it's pretty obvious why that would happen. I guess, that writing, other features of productivity are also affected. Like if your 2-year-old is on your lap all day, you can't write, really, it's hard. But we didn't expect people, and I wouldn't want people to feel like they had to say that.
So Joyce, I want to say that I think the biggest thing is so that the memory isn't lost, that in 5 years that people forget that COVID was there, if like that's ever going to happen. But let's just say it just, it's not hot news anymore. And so you don't want the people down the line if you're an assistant going up for associate or associate going up for full, to forget. So just a statement, everybody knows COVID has impacted everybody in different ways. That's how we open this conversation. But just so that there's a stamp in time that says I was impacted by COVID, and however you were impacted, it likely impacted your productivity. And that's what the faculty that I supervise, they've really expressed that. They don't want it to be forgotten moving forward.
And Joyce, I think you're asking the right questions. I don't know that there's answers, and that's the difficult part. Is in this case we had a synchronous shock that created differential impacts, and without revealing certain information, it's impossible to assess what those differential impacts are. But we have to respect that privacy that goes along with that, and respect the individuals as they've been affected. But I think one of the things that it's really highlighted, and I think one of the reasons why another reason why diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes such an important thing here, is that all of the time we have asynchronous shocks that are going on. And different people have different circumstances. They have different things that are going on around them, but we don't ever ask about those. We just simply look at the outputs. And so how do we take into account those differential impacts? How do we account for differential impacts, differential individual circumstances that result in, we try to measure everybody by the same metrics. And we say that's fair. Is that fair? Is that equitable? These are deep philosophical questions that are really hard to answer.
The feedback that I give to our faculty at Michigan State is that do what is comfortable for you, but preferably don't give too much personal details that you don't want other people to see. However, think about the categories of impact. So for example, I think Jennifer mentioned this one, that you can talk about how it affected your the resources that you use for your research, data collection, NIFA not approving or being able to provide funds for grants that people got or didn't get feedback on time, how that delayed things. And then on the personal front, I think for me, and I think it will be for many people too, it's sufficient to say that you had increased childcare responsibility or role as a caregiver. And then on the personal health part, if it affected your mental health, that should be sufficient, that for various reasons, COVID had significant impact on my mental health or those around me, and that affected my ability to do some of the things that I plan to do. I think documentation is one of the big reasons, as Jane was saying, that you want to document it, even if you don't say much, so that later on, if need be, hopefully you won't need to, but if need be, you can go back and say, I did let you know that I was negatively impacted. What accommodations, so you could turn it on, around on the university then too, or the department, like, so what accommodations do I deserve for that? Because you did ask me to provide some documentation. But I don't think that we can be too legalistic about it, because there are so many unknowns, and the future still have a lot to reveal about how we are going to change individually and collectively as a result of COVID.
Thank you. And I'm going to put DQ on the spot here for a minute, in part to get his perspective as a dean as well, and in part because I feel like I haven't heard from him very much yet today.
So do you have a question for me, or just my perspective overall?
Just your perspective overall.
Well, I still go back to the fact that, in all of this, we have to really think beyond and think of it for individuals, and understanding how different each individual will be and how differently each individual will be impacted. I also like some of the discussion about being able to be on the inside and listen and look at things that we can positively change. I think that a lot of times we buy into the system, and we, kind of try to operate within system boundaries and don't really challenge the system as much as we could potentially do it, to make sure that individuals that we see as valuable to our organization are really respected for the value that they add. And so I think we have to be intentional about making sure that whatever that value is that we see, that we figure out how to make sure it's representative of what our value system is as leaders. And that changes over time. I think one thing that Joyce brought up that kind of got glazed over a little bit was the fact that the implications of the racial unrest that happened during this period also. And I think it's going to be glazed over when it comes to looking at things throughout the promotion and tenure process as well. It's like it didn't happen, but I think that some people were impacted as much or more by that than they were by COVID. And so I think that we have to think of that and understand that there's a group that really had a big impact on. And so we have to digest all of this when we're looking at the impacts of 2020, I'll say, and how they impacted, each individual's productivity. And also, the interesting thing with impact statements, we don't talk a lot about those positive impacts also. And looking at, why were there positive impacts for some, and those statements should come from both sides as well, to make sure that we're documenting reasons that the impacts were positive and also impacts that were negative. So I'll stop there, but glad to have an opportunity to participate. I guess as deans, we do, or I do, lean a lot to the chairs and their perspective, and kind of anticipate that they will have their pulse on the faculty and know the things that are most important and provide an argument for that. And I think that each university is different though in terms of who has the weight for promotion and tenure, and I think it's good for junior faculty to understand that early on. And I think all department heads will know that if it's a college-wide thing, that is the college is most important, what the department says is most important, or will the overall university, do they have a set of standards that will sometimes overturn the wishes of a college or a department? So I think that's important to articulate as well. And I know it's very different at different institutions.
Yeah, that's a really great point too, about navigating the different levels and different expectations and preferences at different levels.
Yes.
We just have a couple more minutes left. If anybody has any closing comments they'd like to offer, I want to thank you all for joining us for what has been a really, really fantastic panel. And we will definitely be sharing the recording with those who couldn't join us live. All right. Well, I won't keep everyone longer than necessary. So thank you again for your time and for your thoughts and your honesty and your vulnerability. I really appreciate all of you participating.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.